So we changed our window in our calculator. We're in radian mode, and the highest y value that we're going to go to is 1 and -1. Okay, the period of sine is 2 pi. So you guys, when we go to graph this, do you agree sine goes up, it's got to go down, it's got to get back to 2 pi in one cycle. So I'm going to have another 0 halfway through. Between that halfway up, I'm going to go up to 1. I'm going to go down to -1, and I just did one period of this function. I'm going to go repeat that pattern. And we just graph sine. And you're like, dude, I've done sine a couple of times. I know what I'm doing. I agree. We're about to switch things up, though. Okay. So we're good now. What do I want us to change on this guy? I just want us to do a negative sign. So in your calculator, you guys, I'm going to leave sine. Beneath it, let's do negative sine of x. So in your y2, go ahead and type in negative sine of x. What's going to change? Yeah, he's like, it's just inverted. It's like reflected over that x-axis. I agree. If I'm just looking at that negative sine of x graph, would you guys say it goes down or up from the origin? It goes down, whereas before it was going up. So that's the only thing that's changing, you guys. So again, we're still bounded between that 1 and -1. And sine still starts at the origin. Is the period still 2 pi, would you say? Yeah, I agree. Period's still 2 pi. So halfway in between, I'm going to be at 1 pi. But where should I go first? Should I go down to -1 or up to +1? I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down to -1 and then up. And there's one period of this graph. And then I'm going to keep that trend going. I said now change your window, but that's already changed, so don't worry about that. Now I want us to go graph y equals 3 sine of x. So you're like, what? Here's what I want you to do on your calculator. I want us to go back to the sine of x, and then you can get rid of the -1. I want us to have sine of x and 3 sine of x graphed in our calculator. Sine of x is y1, 3 sine of x is y2. Then go hit graph. What's that 3 doing? Whoa, it's like stretched longer, right? Does anyone know what that's called? Like sciencey terms? The blank changed. Starts with an A. M. P. Amplitude. The amplitude. It stretched it taller, so the amplitude changed. So you guys, before I was having you put these guidelines at 1 and -1 because it was -1 sine or +1 sine. Now that it's 3 sine, we've got amplitude. We need guidelines at 3 and -3. Those are our guidelines. Did the period change of this graph? Sine, is it still going up to the amplitude, down to the amplitude, and back in 2 pi? Looks like it. So we still have the same period. So I'm going to start at the origin. I'm still going to finish by the time we get to 2 pi. Since it's +3 sine, should I go up first or down first? Up, agreed. So I'm going to go up. I need to go back down. So at pi, I'm going to be back at the middle. And I need to get up to the amplitude. I like those guidelines because they show me how high and how low I got to get. So we got to go how high and how low. That amplitude, whoosh, it's going to stretch it. That's the only thing that changed, though. So let's make sure that we're nice and curvilicious. Oh, I skipped this. What about this period of sine at 3 sine? Still 2 pi? Agreed. Okay, last one. Last one's a little harder, in my opinion. We got to graph, the sine of 2x. So let's go keep our original sine of x. Then under it, I'm going to put the sine of 2x as my y2. Is it more, did I increase the frequency? Did I? Yeah. Didn't it take me 2 pi for blue to finish up? What do you think it's taking now for red to finish a cycle? Just 1 pi. So you guys, this graph is going to be funky. Did I change the amplitude? The amplitude is always the number in front of my function. Do you agree this is 1 sine as opposed to the one before, which was 3 sine? This one is 1 sine. So my guidelines are just going to be 1 and -1. That's as high and as low as I'm going to need to go. 1 and -1. Okay. It's sine, so again, I start at the origin. But what's the period on this one? The period on this one is 1 pi. So this is going to be the cutest little squished in graph ever. We got to finish a whole cycle by the time we get to pi. Okay, you guys, we got to get this little thing scrunched in. Am I going to start by going up or down if it was positive sign? Up. Thanks, Henry. I'm going to go up. I got to get back to the middle, and I got to get down all in 1 pi. This is the cutest, littlest thing I've ever did see. So I'm going to just keep that pattern going, and then I'm going to connect them nice and curvily. You figuring it out, Thompson? Are we feeling okay with graphing that cute little graph ski? So the thing with the x is affecting the frequency. The number in front is affecting how high it will go. So let's flip it. Origin. Okay, so now we're looking at this page 19. This is a little summary of what we were just talking about with some wordage. The amplitude, you guys, the amplitude is always right in the beginning of an equation. It's going to be the value A they put right in front of the sine or the cosine. So the other thing is amplitude, we always say is positive. So what if I said y equals 7 sine of 6x? What's the amplitude? 7. The amplitude is 7. What if I said y equals negative 1.2 cosine of 4x? Yeah, the amplitude's going to be 1.2. They don't care that it's negative. That just means that we're going to go 1.2 above and 1.2 below. We always state that it's positive. What about this guy? What do we want to say the amplitude is of that one? 5. Just 5. Love it. Amplitude is 5. And then, just like we were seeing, that frequency can change, the period can change. And here's what I want you to write this a little bigger. The period is always 2 pi over k. This is an important formula that we're going to use a lot. So I just want to, it's written right here. I just think it's a little understated, whereas we need to use that a lot. So let me give you an example before this guy. What if I said I got y equals cosine or sine, doesn't matter, of 3x?
2 pi over 3.
Yes. So you guys look at where that k is. The k is always with the variable. And in order to figure out the period, you always take 2 pi divided by the k. And again, the k is just whatever was in front of your angle, like theta or x. In this case, what's my k? 3. So you guys, to find the period of this one, we would just say, oh, the period of this one is 2 pi over the k, and in this case is 3. So the period of this cute little graph that I'm not going to make you graph is 2/3 of a pi. I have us do this one because I think it's a little easier than this example right here. What's my k here? 1 what? Could I rewrite this? Could I rewrite this as the cosine of 1/2 theta? Is that the same thing? Or is that the same thing as 0.5 theta? You know what I'm saying? Theta divided by 2 is the same as 1/2 theta. So what's my k in this case? 1/2, right? So now to find the period of this one, you guys, it's 2 pi over my k, and my k is 1/2 here. I write it as 1 over 2 because I think it's easier to multiply, divide fractions like that. Dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 1/2? 2. So what's the period of this one going to be? 4 pi. So this is the same as saying 2 pi divided by 1/2 is the same as 2 pi times 2, which is 4 pi. That's just elongating, and you can even see it right above. That's just elongating my graph. It's 4 pi until it repeats itself. Typically, we're used to 2 pi. Okay, let's try that one more time. On this one here, state the amplitude of this function. What do we think, y'all? Amplitude is 1/2. My amplitude's 1/2 because the amplitude is always chilling out front. And then the period, they also want us to state the period is just 2 pi over the k value. 2 pi over the k value. The k value is 4 because that comes from right in front of the variable. What's 2/4 going to simplify to be? Pi over 2. Okay. Then they want us to graph it with that info. So I didn't name the y scale. We can make it anything we want. If you make this 1, my amplitude has to go up to only 1/2 and down to -1/2, which we can do. Or do you want to make this 1/2? Or do you want to make that 1/2? As long as you name it, you can do whatever you want. Right, you make the call. Are we putting 1/2 here in red, here in blue, or here in pink? Blue, you're like, I just want to make it a nice one step. That sounds good. As long as we label it, we can do anything we want. She says that's 1/2. So I'm going to say, ooh, if my amplitude's 1/2, I got to go up to that and down to that. And those are my nice little guidelines. Sine starts at the origin. So I'm going to start at the origin. What's the period of this one? What did we get the period to be? Pi over 2. This is going to be the cutest little thing ever. We've got to get from the starting point to that end point in 1/2 a pi. We're going to start by going up or down if it was positive 1/2. Up. Thanks, Lob. We're going to go up. We're going to go up to 1/2. Oh, boy. We're going to go down back to 0. We're going to go down to -1/2. We are squishing this cute little sine graph. Squish it up. Boop, boop, boop. And continue that trend. It is really condensed because they increased that frequency. Then I'm going to connect these cute little waves. What about if I just give you the words and I want you to write me the equation? So if I'm telling you the amplitude is 9.8, and maybe you want to write yourself like the form of an equation is y equals the amplitude. They want it to be cosine of kx. That's really how, or k theta, however you want to write it. So how could we start that? What would my amplitude be?
9.8.
Could I say -9.8?
No.
Does that still have an amplitude of 9.8? Hey, right? So I could do really either one, plus or minus, right? I'm going to be minus to be sassy on this Thursday. Because when I would read that, I'd say, oh, the amplitude is still 9.8. Cool? I'm going to use cosine just because I told you to use cosine. But you guys, we got to go figure out what we'd put in for k. The period is 6 pi. K is not 6 pi. What we got to remember is the period is 2 pi over k. If the period is 2 pi over k, could I replace this period with 6 pi? Because they're saying the period is 6 pi. You're like, okay, then this period is 6 pi. I'm going to put that right there. Could we throw that over 1 and just cross multiply and solve it? Or we could also think, what should my k be to make that 6 pi, right? 2 different ways to do it. This is kind of the algebraic way. What would happen if I cross multiply that there? 6 pi k? What's going to happen here? 2 pi. How do I get k by itself?
Divide by 2 pi.
Divide by 6 pi. What's my k going to be?
1/3.
Thanks. 2/6, 1/3. That gets us that k value, you guys. So that's what I'm going to put right here. My k is 1/3, so I'm going to say 1/3 theta. Could I also say 9.8 cosine of theta over 3? Are those the same thing? Yeah, either way. I'm good with it. So as we start this homework, page 20 and 21, we're going to do a little bit of it. You guys state the amplitude. Let's just knock these 3 out in the top. Amplitude of this guy. Amplitude of the next one. Positive 3/4. Amplitude of the next one. Your answers will always be positive for amplitude. Always. Always. Period. Period, as a reminder, is 2 pi over k. And maybe by Monday, we're not going to remember what k is. So maybe you write yourself a note. That's k. That's k. That's k. K is always with the x, or the variable, in this case, a theta. So what would we do for the first one? 2 pi over what?
2.
Is going to simplify to be that. Yeah, so I want that simplified version, right? Trying to trick you on 21, people. What's my K here?
1/4.
Yeah, you guys, this is important to remember. That's the same as 1/4 theta. Not theta over 4 still gets me a K value of 1/4. So just be careful. Period is 2 pi over K. So I'm going to say 2 pi over a fourth. 2 pi divided by a fourth is the same as 2 pi times 4. Thanks, Ave. Therefore, the period of this one, 8 pi. This one's really stretched out. It's going to take 8 pi until it finishes one cycle. And the last one would be 2 pi over what? Good. 2 pi over 6 simplifying to perfect. That's that period. Boop, a little more shrunk. When I gave you cosine, it was, oh yeah, we always start at 1. Well, you want to know why we start at 1? We start at 1 because it was 1 cosine. In this case, what's my amplitude? 5. Where do you think we're going to start now that it's 5 cosine? We're going to start at 5, people. So we need to go give ourselves some guidelines. 5's my amplitude. I got to go as high as 5 and as low as -5. And that's where this one gets a little different. We're used to cosine not starting at the origin. I agree. Cosine always starts at the amplitude. Since it's 5, I'm going to start all the way up here. What's the period of this one? 2 pi over, what's in front of my theta? 1. You guys, what's 2 pi over 1? 2 pi. So I haven't changed the period on you, right? So if I'm starting here in 2 pi, I better get back up there. Boop. How low do I need to get? -5. At what x value will that happen? Nice. Right in the middle at pi. In between those two at pi over 2, I'll have some zeros. This looks like a V. This looks like a dagger. Be careful. Make it nice and curvy. We just have a really big cosine graph. Boop, 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 boop. What about this guy? What's my amplitude on this one? 3. Thanks, darling. I'm going to go as high as 3 and as low as -3. The period of this one. 2 pi over what? Again, I just have a 1 in front of that. Thanks, Hen. So 2 pi over 1 is just still 2 pi. You guys, it's sine. Where do I start sine every time? At the 0. And I got to get back to 0 at 2 pi in this case, right? I didn't change the period. You guys, if it's 3 sine, should I start by going up to 3 or down to -3? Up, because it was positive. So I'm going to go up to 3, back to 0, down, and then I can follow my trend. Put that in a different color. Oh, my hand got a little jagged. Okay, we did change this one to -4 cosine. What's my amplitude? 4, still 4. I'm going to draw guidelines up to 4 and down to -4. It's cosine. Where do we start? We start at the amplitude. I agree. On the first one, we started at 5 because it had that amplitude of 5 that we're always going to say is positive. Even though we said this is positive, you're going to start at that value. So do you want me to start up at 4 or down at 4? We're going to start down on this one. We're going to start down at the lowest point of this graph. It's going to take us how long to get back there? What's the period going to be of this one? 2 pi over 1, still 2 pi, right? So in 2 pi, I'm still at the lowest point of that graph. Where am I going to be at the highest point? All the way up there. Then I'm going to cut it in half and have my zeros. And then I'm going to continue my trend. I should be better at getting through my points. Let's skip the top one. It's a little excessive. I just want to do 37 so that I'm going to do this one, and then you guys are going to do these two, and then we're Gucci. So I said, hey, write the equation of a cosine graph with the given amplitude and period. So I gave you a random amplitude here. So again, just if you're curious, it's always going to go amplitude. And in this case, again, I asked for it to be cosine because I put that word right there. Boop. And then it's going to be k theta. Okay. What do you want to put in front? Y equals what? 35.7. What if Riley put negative 35.7? We're still good. So I might just put a plus or minus because if this is my answer key, I'll have both of those there in case y'all are feeling sassy. You can just put one or the other though. We're going to put cosine because that's what I said. Go cosine. Go cosine. We got to go figure out k. K, if I were you, I'd say period is always 2 pi over k. What's the period in this case? Pi over 4. So you guys, that's going to substitute in for the period right here. I'm going to say, when does pi over 4 equal 2 pi over k? You were waiting for me to watch you. I do not like that. I do not like that. Let's go cross multiply. What's this going to get me? K pi. Pi k? Either way. I'm going to put pi k because I don't like that you did that. What about this? 8 pi. I need k. What are we going to do to get k by itself? You know it. What's my k? 8. So how would I write that final answer? Cosine of 8 theta. 8x, 8 h's, 8 whatever you want. I'm just going to have you do 41 and 45, and then it's the 4-day weekend, baby.